You know, it's funny because I always, in my classes, I will always get 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 people that after a process will say, I just can't believe it's so easy. You know, it's too simple. Like, how does that even work? I can't believe it worked. And one of the things that I like to share is, depending on who you're with, sometimes you have to overly complicate it. So, for instance, you can call this the ball toss when you're working with a kid or a Californian. I'm just kidding. I kid. Or you can call it bilateral stimulation for hemispheric synchronization. You can call this the backward spin, or you can call it a cognitive kinesthetic restructuring pattern. Right? So sometimes that's needed. Seriously. You know, I told you I have 2 basic kinds of clients these days. Either the patients of other people, right? So referred by therapists, psychiatrists, doctors, or I have the therapists, psychiatrists, doctors as clients. So I have these 2 different camps. And I have to speak 2 different languages because the backward spin that really stopped that psychiatrist's anxiety, there's something wrong with something that simple working when you've been doing this for 40 years and the only thing you got is medication to give. So we've got to come up with something that gets that conscious buy-in. And, you know, cognitive kinesthetic restructuring sounds like something they might want to know about.
Do you even bother to tell them what it's called, or is that?
They typically want to know. Remember, conscious buy-in means whatever I got to do, whatever I got to say to get you on board with this, right? And so sometimes it really needs to be a bit more complex because, you know, if you've been struggling with something for 40 years, and, you know, it's your field and you don't have a lot of skills to help people other than medication, and somebody says, here, pass this water bottle back and forth, and their anxiety goes from a 10 to a 0, they're going to be pissed. I'm not kidding. Seriously pissed. So if I do this whole rigmarole just so they understand, oh, I see, we're stimulating both hemispheres of the brain. That's interesting. I can understand that, right? Like, oh, and I will always add in where they've just discovered that anxiety is primarily, and this way, you know, they just discovered it. That's why you don't know it. You know, we work with people, and people have a bunch of stuff that they come in with. So,
read the neuroscience pattern for the
yes, the neuroscience pattern. Absolutely. A little neuroscience goes a long way.
Come out of the Y into something.
Yeah. That's right. Because everyone has heard of neuroplasticity, and I'm being strategic. So, for instance, a lot of people say, you know, what is it you tell doctors when they call you and they want to know if you can help one of their patients? And I'll tell you what I don't tell them. I don't tell them that I'm going to use hypnosis to go to the cause and cure them. That's not going to fly. What I tell them is I'm going to teach their patient many different affect regulation tools designed to encourage neuroplasticity so they can rewire their own brain. I'll teach them self-hypnosis for stress reduction and mental rehearsal. And there's not a single clinician that would not want that for their patient. So there's something about using language like that. So just to wrap this in, to fold it in, to recap a little bit, because I know I'm teaching you a lot of pieces. The ideas are you practice a lot of the pieces, but they really do fit together in many different ways. So we've got these big ideas. The first idea is the self-directed neuroplasticity. And that's all these little pattern interrupts, all the different roadblocks designed to encourage rewiring of the brain. We've got the meta pattern that is the structure of change and really should be a part of everything you're doing. You should always have an awareness of where you are going to repattern something. People come in with these big, big problems. And if you think about the change work as either pumping up the resource, shrinking the problem because change happens in the collapse, when they come in with such a big problem, anxiety disorder, low self-esteem, I mean, even procrastination or, weight loss, these are big patterns, big problems. We need to say, when was the last time specifically? This way, because you're never going to find something that big that's going to be able to collapse the whole thing. All right, I'm going to call bullshit on myself. Bullshit on yourself. Because the truth is, I shouldn't say never. There is big states that can collapse a big issue. But they are a little harder to grasp sometimes. This is where my focus has been the past few months, is investigating how we can hypnotically induce the transformative, the transcendental, the aha moment that changes everything, because those are big states. So I've been playing with different ways of revivifying psychedelic states, moments of transcendence, because those are the times when people can make massive changes on an epic scale without having to make changes in bite-sized pieces, which is more typical and standard of what shows up in our office. So I'm working on that still. And I'll share with you later or tomorrow some of the little tricks that I have of doing that. So we've got these big pieces. We've got the meta pattern that is within everything, because that is the problem in most hypnotists' office. They do not light up number one of the meta pattern. They trust the client to say, well, I have low self-esteem, and I want to be able to do this and this and this. And then somebody takes them into a trance and gives them this lovely, dreamy trance induction where they're going to say, you're going to be feeling better, feeling confident. You're going to, all of this stuff. And they walk out of your office feeling awesome. And then life smacks them in the face because you had this awesome resource that you created, but you didn't know where to attach it. And if you don't light up the relevant neural network and then create the resource to attach to it, then you are simply getting temporary emotional state change. And it's not good enough. They will come back to you because it felt really good when they were with you, but it didn't stick. So when I have a client where the change didn't necessarily generalize or carry over, I know I missed something. I know that I've got to go back in, right? Clearly I didn't get enough triggers for the pattern to generalize. So we also have then these layers, right? So we are doing this kind of uptime stuff, this dynamic change work. And that includes all of the pattern interrupts. When was the last time specifically? Where are you? What's happening? You have that feeling. Where is it in your body? Drop right to the center. And what's underneath? Right? We can do that. Or where is it in your body? And tap it out. Where is it in your body? Any one of these. And then, now that you're feeling this nice, wonderful feeling, now see the trigger. So all of those patterns as well as processes can fit inside this meta pattern. Then we have the more formal trance states where we search for meaning. We search for understanding. We search for a more generalizing story, something bigger and broader. And for that, so far, we have the mirroring hands. We have the wise advocate. We have a bigger, broader change when it comes to the campfire process, right? Kind of releasing something cathartic, forgiveness. We have the idea of re-imprinting, which can be done from inside a deep trance or just from a conversation. Resourcing the younger you. We've got the wise advocate for insight, for understanding, where you ask the wise advocate what the positive intention underneath this was. And is there any ideas generated to come up with alternatives to satisfy the positive intention? Sometimes we just go into a nice, open, focused brain state and sit with any creative ideas that come to mind as you hold this issue in mind. So really, if I were to sum up the way that I work, this is it. We get strategic repatterning done. I arm the client with ways to continue the work and to rewire their own brain. I neutralize enough triggers to encourage generalization in the brain. And then we search for a deeper understanding of the why. So we're going to cover many more ways, of doing those types of things. We want to keep bringing in novelty, fun, curiosity, because it encourages the brain to pay attention. It encourages the brain to integrate into long-term memory. Dopamine is the name of the game, and it should be flowing throughout your session. It doesn't matter what people come in for. I see people for, hardcore trauma. I see people who are stage 4 cancer, and we are still having a good time and laughing in our sessions. They need it more than ever. So even though, truth be told, you could probably get every single change you needed to get with just the meta pattern, that would get boring, and then you would be boring, and then your clients would be bored. And that's not fun. Who wants that? Know what I mean? So we have different ways of teaching the client self-hypnosis. We've got the self-hypnosis template, right? The 10-to-1, the movie screen. We've got the wise advocate as a self-hypnosis pattern with the beautiful staircase, beautiful door. We've got the space between as a 1 to 2 minute take your brain to the gym exercise, as well as all the different pattern interrupts that can be longer processes. Heart breathing for down-regulating the vagus nerve. The metaphoric two-step can be used by the client, but it's also a maneuver in your co-creative dance, right? Yes?
After the first session, you are inviting your clients.
So the question is, after the first session, when I give clients my little toolkit book and I make them read it for homework, how often do I have them use the pattern interrupts and the self-hypnosis? The pattern interrupts are as needed, right? So I don't want them to consider it a chore. I want them to know they have these techniques in their back pocket. And so only as needed. The self-hypnosis that we keep to 2 minutes or under, I want them to do one of those forms once a day so that we keep moving forward. So that's the one they're practicing. Okay, the other ones are there if they need it. Does that make sense? Good. So some of the other inductions we went over is the conscious-unconscious dissociation. The idea that even when you're describing and using this hand model, that we're talking about the conscious mind being so limited, but the unconscious mind, right? Having all this. The conscious mind is where you can think about, this, the future, and worry about the past, but it's kind of linear. But your unconscious mind is simultaneous processing. Got it? So we could set that up. We talk to them about what hypnosis is, as far as what we're doing and how they're always influencing their unconscious mind, right? We talked about different ways to carry over this conscious-unconscious dissociation into trance with the lifting that hand 1 fraction of an inch at a time, right? We did that nice, deep body trance of the hypnotic loop, right? And then the emerging from the neck up to embrace the weird, to always remember to add in an extraordinary moment. Whatever that is, whether it's, oh my God, I couldn't lift my leg, it was so heavy. Or whether it's, I'm emerging from the neck up and my head is bouncing on the wall or ceiling. Extraordinary moments. We always want to bring that in because this shit is fun. It's true. We're so lucky. We have the best job. And so many times it becomes like drudgery because we get all caught up in people's stories. And then we're all depressed. They don't need another person to commiserate, right? They need someone to take them by the hand and pull them out of the hole and not jump in that hole with them. Doesn't help. We don't care about Mary. Right?